Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 18 of Show Us Your Kit. I'm delighted today to be joined by Dan Fudge, the mildly amusing Dan Fudge from the Wednesday Week podcast, Sheffield Wednesday fan. How are you doing?
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad. Trying to put together the life after the storm last night. We had a storm on the south coast, and my car has moved. There's things all over the street. It's a right mess down here.
Yeah. Well, the most that we had was my bin blew over, unfortunately. That's all the excitement
we will rebuild. We will rebuild.
Yeah, so Sheffield Wednesday, for people of my generation, I've got a very, very foggy memory of them being a Premier League team. I can see Paolo Di Canio now pushing over that referee. Just give us a brief history of the last 20 or 30 years of Sheffield Wednesday and what's gone wrong.
Well, when I was a kid, when I was 10, we went on a barnstorming season. We were in what's now the Championship, and we were top of the league, and we got to the League Cup final, known then as the Rumbelows Cup, the League Cup final, and we beat Manchester United 1-0 from a 25-yard scorcher from John Sheridan, and that was our last major trophy. Then when we were in the 90s, in the early part of the 90s, we were great. We signed Chris Waddle in 1991 for £1 million from Marseille, and coupled with John Sheridan, and then the mercurial striker David Hurst, they were something else. And we flanked them with super fit fullback, Roland Nilsson. We brought a young kid in, Chris Bart Williams, and we were great. And we got to the two cup finals. Ironically, in '93, we got to two cup finals. Ironically, against Arsenal both times. We lost them both. Great. Arsenal with a double. But I remember thinking, as a 13-year-old boy, this is great. This is amazing. Yeah. Look at what's going on. So I had a season ticket from 91 to 2001. And I think during that 10-year period, I watched a slow decline of, board mismanagement. Because obviously when you are a sellable asset, there's money to be made. There's coin to be had. And our chairman at the time, Dave Richards, who always had one eye on a role with the FA, which I think he's still doing now. I think he left the other year, actually, was always trying to get somewhere else. And we overstretched ourselves. And from the period of about 98 to 2000, we'd become a selling club, and we'd also become absolutely terrible. We were Derby County, Sheffield United, currently terrible. So, and then we got relegated in the year 2000, and we've never been back since. We've had a few things to sing about. So, for example, the playoff final from League One to the Championship, that was something to shout about. We've done that. We did that in Cardiff in 2005, and then in 2012, there was a wonderful season in League One. The two big South Yorkshire teams in League One were Doncaster and Barnsley, and in the Championship, and we were in League One with Sheffield United, and they were 12 points clear of us at the top of the league with Charlton. So Charlton were at the top. Sheffield United were second with about 8 games to go. We got rid of our manager, and we replaced him with Dave Jones. And Dave Jones came in, and we won something like 12 on the bounce, and we were romping up that league. And this came around a similar time as, I'm not going into too much detail, but Ched Evans, the £3 million striker for Sheffield United, got arrested and then didn't play football, and he was bagging goals for them. And then all of a sudden, they went to Bobbins, and we ended up overtaking them for that last second automatic promotion spot, and then they fell in the playoffs. So 2012 was a good year for us, and then it's been rubbish ever since. It's just been Championship meandering. We got took over by Dejphon Chansiri after a brief flirtation with Milan Mandaric, the old Portsmouth chairman. Now, what Milan did was absolutely steady a really sinking ship. We needed stability at the very top, and Milan did that very well. And he told us to Thai businessman who's essentially John West. All this tuna money came in, and we were minted, and we thought this is great. And then in 2015, we had no players, and we signed everybody. Anybody who'd done any good in the Championship, we're going to have. Gary Hooper, Jordan Rhodes a couple of years later. We had Ross Wallace, we had Barry Bannon. The absolute top end signings these were. But and then we ended up going to the playoff final, where we got still one of the best days out I've ever had, because I was well into my 30s now, and I know how to drink now. You know what I mean? I got a proper day out. And I really enjoyed myself. But we rolled over and died that day. We were outclassed by Steve Bruce on the day, lost 1-0. And we just didn't turn up. We weren't at the races. I was dead proud of the Wednesday fans that day. We really gave great account of ourselves. But the game itself was dour for us. We were very poor. And then since then, we got knocked out by Huddersfield the following year, David Wagner, when he got promoted with them. Yeah. And then it's been financial trouble, point deductions, falling foul of financial fair play. And now we started this season with a 12-point deficit for cheating.
Yeah, well, as a Wolves fan, I always looked at Sheffield Wednesday and thought that they would be always at the top of the table or always challenging in the Championship, but they always sort of faded away. They were one of those, a little bit like Derby a few years ago, where they'd start off so well, but then they'd just drift away because, they didn't have the sort of team cohesion that you need to get through the Championship. You are going to lose 10, 12 games in the league, and you need to be able to deal with that and still play well.
Absolutely. We never got our Nuno. You know what I mean? No. We had the infrastructure in place the first couple of years, but we never got our Nuno. We gave a job to fellow countryman Carlos Carvalhal, and it came out of absolutely nowhere. And he played wonderful attacking, expansive football, but he was very one-dimensional. And his first 2 seasons with us, we had playoffs. Great. You know what I mean? We had a playoff semi and we had a playoff final. Great. The third season, by November, we were languishing. We were awful. And it became very toxic to give Carlos a third bite of the cherry, because he had nowhere else to go. This is how I'm going to play football. This is it. There was no maneuverability. Well, he's not malleable as a coach. No. And so we dismissed him and then got spanked 3-0 by Burton on New Year's Day. And then since then, it's been dreadful.
Yeah. I just want to pull you back in time a little bit as well, because I was far too young to remember it at the time, but my grandfather's favourite Wolves game is a game against Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup 1995 at Molineux.
I know which game you're going to say, yeah.
So just from your point of view, that penalty shootout, being 3-0 up and managing to lose in a shootout.
Yeah.
Were you there, or can you remember the game?
I could tell you exactly where I was. I was at one of those, back in the 90s, there was a trend of having your birthday party at a nightclub on a Wednesday night, an empty nightclub. Right. So they go, we'll put a Pop and Chris night on for somebody's birthday. And they had it on the corner, and me and all our friends were sat there in our Wednesday shirts, just watching this game. We thought, we've won it. We're great. This is great. And then were we 3-0 up?
You were 3-0 up in the shootout and lost.
Oh, in the shootout, yes, we were. Yeah,
in the shootout,
And then Chris Waddle ballooned it, didn't he? And I don't think Chris Waddle's penalties confident must be very much on the floor.
Well, I think that was the first penalty he'd taken since Italia 90, so he hadn't taken a penalty at all for 5 years, and then he misses again and loses that game. But that shootout has one of the greatest penalties of all time.
Yep. By
the goalkeeper, Kevin Pressman. Unbelievable penalty. Did he take another penalty in his career? Do you know?
Yeah, he did. He took 2. I remember we had one we had a penalty shootout against Watford, but that one specifically against Wolves in that cup tie. I mean, we are talking the toppest of bins, and a phenomenal rate of knots the way that went in that corner. Because if you sat there watching a penalty shootout and the goalkeeper steps up, you think, oh, God, what have we done here? But then England international Chris Waddle steps up, you think, well, we're going to be all right. And it kind of flipped it on its head for me that day.
Yeah, very, very memorable game. I mean, even though I have no memory of the game happening, I watched that on YouTube fairly regularly. I do remember, however, it would have been probably the year you got relegated. We played you again in the FA Cup and lost on penalties too, with Pavel Srnicek having an absolute blinder, saving like 3 or 4 of the penalties. Very, very memorable game. But then also on the topic of Kevin Pressman, do you know which Football League record he has and set at Molineux?
Oh, it was the first game of our championship season in 2000. It was 13 seconds. Tamuri Ketsbayer went sprinting through straight from kickoff. Kevin Pressman's come out and he's handballed it outside the area with his save, and then got sent off. That's the record he's got. And I tell you what, I remember, obviously this is the days before Twitter and Facebook, and the only time you got to read about the club in the championship, because we were used to being in the press and we were used to being on telly and match of the day, and this was day one of us being in the championship. Thinking that we were going to rinse it as well, thinking that we were going to go straight back up, and we didn't. We flirted relegation for 2 seasons and went down again. And but I never forget that moment, because obviously Kevin Pressman is what you'd refer to as a big stag, and that was the first time I saw that. Yeah, and that was the first time I saw that kit with that god awful Chupa Chups logo on the front. And I remember thinking, God, this is how far we've come. This is how far we've fallen. You know what I mean? We can't even get Chupa Chups sponsorship in terms of a national brand, massive. But look at it.
Yeah,
look at it.
Right, so on that note, then let's have a look at your first kit, your favourite Sheffield Wednesday kit, and then the story behind why it is your favourite one.
I tell you what, I've compiled the top 3 of these, and but I end up with plumping for a 4th. So I'm going to give you some honourable mentions here. And now these 3 are all away kits. Now the away kit over the years has started to die a little bit. A lot of people want to wear the original colours, and not many people buy the away kits. But these were big business for Sheffield Wednesday. We had a very popular one in 1993, which was all black with yellow pinstripes, and sold in amongst itself thousands. But this one was my first away kit. This one is the opposite to the one I've just been speaking about. So this is yellow with black stripes and 1991 away shirt. No sponsor, and I remember the opening game of the 2016 season. I managed to fit into it, so I was all right with that. That's probably why it's one of my faves. Now these two are absolute cult classics with the Sheffield Wednesday fraternity, and this one's incredible. Like, this is a lavender purple away kit from, I think it's 1986. This has become one of those kits that's just been, revered over time. Yeah. And there was a Midlands-based company that started reprinting kits, so I finally managed to get hold of myself one. Tell you what, it's a bit snug. You know what I mean? But I'll get there in the end. And this one, I mean, it's got everything about it's 80s. The tight fit,
Finn looks.
Yeah, Finn looks TV and video. What did they even do? You know what I mean? I assume it's something to do like Rumbelows, where people put 50p in a TV or something like that. I think it's got something to do with it. But it's got the old badge. It's it's an Umbro kit. It's got the the collar. Absolute masterpiece. And then this one, I mean, with the yellow one, you can go, I can see why that's a Sheffield Wednesday kit. That, the lavender one, it's lavender. Who the fuck has a lavender kit? Like, this one is insane. So this kit is an away kit from 1987, and if you know your kits, you know which one I'm going to hold up. But how in the world wider sports this was commissioned? But this is the Sheffield. What's going on there?
Oh dear.
So
at least it's got blue and white on it. That's the only thing that's relevant. But where's the green?
Where did the green Celtic hoops come from? What is that? and VT Plastics. There's a showbiz sponsor for you. Yeah. So those were my honourable mentions. I love them. But obviously my favourite kit has to be this one. This is the shirt from the 1991 Rumbelows Cup final. Now just specifically for the final game, we were sponsored by Asda on the day, and you could take your shirt to the club shop and they would put the Asda badge on it. But this is a 30-year-old shirt. And
so that's not a reprint, that is the original.
No, this is the OG, made by Umbro used to have a label making it, and it says Replicate, which I genuinely enjoy. This one I had to buy secondhand. I've got an original one somewhere in my pile, but this one has got a number 9 on the back for David Hurst, which is annoying because he wore number 5 on the day, so that's annoying. And it's got the letters picked off. I don't know if you can see it there. The letters picked off, and it says Neil underneath. I don't know who Neil is, but I've got an original. This one I was going to get framed, but I've got an original one without Neil on it somewhere. But this one was higher up in the box.
Very good, very good. Some very interesting looking kits there. Just tell me briefly, because I've done a little bit of research on Wednesday and over the last couple of hours in preparation for this. You've had a couple of flirtations with European football in the 90s, but not much success. Have you got many memories of those European games?
It's weird, actually. We went to Europe on the back of the 1993 season, wasn't it? I think it was, and we ended up playing Spora Luxembourg. And we beat them something like 8-1 or a ridiculous amount. And I go regularly on football pilgrimages to places, for content online, all the rest of it. And, for example, one year I went to Ajax, Feyenoord and Den Bosch all in one weekend because the fixtures sit nice. And the last big one I did was we went into France. We flew to France. We drove down to Metz to go and watch FC Metz. Then drove up to Dortmund and watched the game there. And then drove down to Luxembourg. Now, Luxembourg league football is very non-leaguey. You know what I mean? And I went to go and watch what the now incarnation of Spora Luxembourg are against FC Dudelange. At their,
I've heard of Dudelange. They have been in the Europa League. I'm sure they have. Yeah,
Europa League megastars. So when it comes to playing at the Europa League, they don't play in their small ground as big as Hallam FC. They play at the National Stadium in Luxembourg, and they were playing the likes of AC Milan. And I watched them play Sporting Luxembourg, so that's nice, isn't it? But the European exploits I believe should have been better. Yeah. But given the squad we had at the time, but we just didn't push it on, and I feel it would have, if we'd have pushed that a lot more, if we'd have really gone to town on the European thing, we'd still be in the Premier League now. I feel like it set the tone for the next 10 years.
Well, that's it. Like, I've been to Hillsborough now a few times with Wolves, and seen, like, it's a big stadium. You've obviously got a huge following. You're a big club, historical club, but then the stadium's fallen apart and there's bits closed, and it doesn't look like it should be. I felt the same when I went to Leeds the first time. Perhaps that might change now because they've got back to the Premier League, but it just feels like there is a huge giant ready to be woken up there. And there's when you watch teams like Bournemouth and Huddersfield playing in the Premier League, and then you see Forest and Wednesday in the Championship for 20, 30 years, it's just that they're badly run clubs for me anyway. And they've got the potential to be a top 6 Premier League club again, but they just can't get things right off the pitch. Is that the case?
It's weird. Every time a manager comes in, we get we have a standing gag on the social medias that everybody we call ourselves the Massive. You know what I mean? Because they always go, "Oh, it's a massive club. It's a sleeping giant," and we get the same speech from every manager, every chairman that comes in. But we've been sat there sleeping giants in now for 20 years. You know what I mean? And it's a long time. But I believe that we are selling Sheffield as a city short as well. I mean, look at the way Sheffield United are performing in the Premier League. We are the 4th biggest city in the country. We should be represented up in the top flight, and we aren't. And you're right. I get really annoyed when you see it's a nice little story. Don't get me wrong. That's a lovely story. Blackpool, Huddersfield, Hull City get into the Premier League. Yeah. But for me, it's just that shit football and business has taken over. You know what I mean? Like, look at when Stoke got promoted, they just absolutely hoofed their way into the Premier League. And then what they did, they went to the Premier League and just sat there trying to keep it tight. Don't concede any goals. You might be able to get one on break. And football as an entertainment business has died. It's absolutely died. And what we've turned into now is an equivalent of the Spanish league, where we have the top 2 or 3 teams fighting it out amongst themselves. But at the end of the day, people are going, look how many goals Messi scored. What, against Getafe? You know what I mean? They just, like, I can't imagine that there's kids in Spain walking around with a Bournemouth shirt on. No. Do you know what I mean? Because they've been on holiday. Football as an entertainment business has passed on. And what we do, we we try and preserve our Premier League status for the money, but the football itself has gone. It's died.
I do agree. Even with Wolves now, I mean, if you look from the outside, 2 seventh place finishes, quarterfinal of the Europa League, you'd think we're buzzing. But there's a huge majority of the fans who are not happy with the entertainment of the football, because it is very pragmatic, and you can't argue if you are successful with it. Then you can't say, well, let's sack Nuno and get in blinking Sam Allardyce and boot the ball to the wings and run like mad, because you'll end up finishing 18th, you get relegated, then you start again.
Absolutely.
But let's move on then before we carry on ranting even more. The second shirt that you've got then, so this is not a Sheffield Wednesday shirt, another.
Not a Sheffield Wednesday shirt. This is my first ever NFL Miami Dolphins jersey. I got right into NFL the last few years, and I've loved it, and I feel that I was really intrigued by the draft system, and I was really intrigued by the contracts and the way it's managed, and God, whoever's listening to this, whoever is a big staunch football fan, I feel that this country needs to go the way the States have got it going on with their draft picks, with the NFL, with the basketball, with every sport that they have. And the reason being is that we are going to spunk loads of money away trying to keep clubs open that people don't give a shit about anymore. And I've got no issue with these clubs per se, but we spend a lot of money trying to keep clubs like Walsall, Rochdale, Southport. Who gives a shit about these clubs? Do you know what I mean? And this breakaway European league that they mooted a couple of months ago, I can see why there is a marketability there. And then what will happen is those clubs will go on and do their European league, and it'll be elite football and all the rest of it. And our English league pyramid system, as we know it, will die. It will be, it'll be like Sunday league, the way it'll just fall away. And I think we will end up going into a franchise system. We will go into maybe not a draft pick system, but wage caps will come back. They're already creeping into League 1 and 2. League 1 and 2 will be an absolute misnomer. They won't be a thing, because the community spirit of a football club is dead, and it died a few years ago. All those days of putting your flat cap on and going for a pint with your dad and standing there and having a panda pop outside because you weren't allowed in. All that's gone. It's dead. It's dead. It's now a business. Wolves were much maligned for their fireworks and light show before the game. I thought it was great, and I'll tell you why it was great, because football's very snobbish, with no real grounding of being snobbish. It's it smells like pee and beer and fags. Do you know what I mean? But they go, I can't bloody believe we've got this crap going on. Well, imagine that game away. I'm a Sheffield Wednesday fan away at Wolves, and I'm 10 years old, and I've seen this light show, and wow, look at this. And what Wolves have done is got more fans that day, because that would be the one game that they went to, and that's what it is. And when it comes to opening up and expanding the world, I think that the smaller clubs are going to die away, and it really wouldn't surprise me the way Sheffield United are going right now, the way we're going right now, that at this Phoenix club, a Sheffield City FC, Sheffield City franchise will come out of nowhere. And I think the Football League pyramid that we know it will be dead in about 20 years.
But I can't see. I mean, speaking, from myself, I couldn't see a time where, Wolves, Albion, Villa come together as a club. Yeah. And surely you would feel the same about Leeds and Huddersfield coming together. Yeah,
it's not a coming together. I think those clubs will die. Those players will find themselves in a just freed. They'll be on a Bosman or whatever. They will be without a club, and then there will be a new franchise startup club. It won't be a Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield City and blue and red stripes.
Yorkshire FC.
It will be Sheffield. They'll call it Steel FC or something ridiculous. Yeah. You know what I mean? The Steelers or whatever. That's what they'll call it, and that's what it will be. And then it will be very regional. So you will have probably 2 London clubs, maybe 2 Birmingham clubs, and Aston Villa as a brand will die, and there will be these franchise sprout up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with it, but
I don't agree with it. I just think it's going
it
to
probably
happen.
will happen. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, I think it'd be such a shame because I know what you're saying about local communities, but when you go to work and you're working with 10 different people and they support 4 different clubs, that's still a really key part of community life, and I do hope it continues. But the more teams that go out of business, like Bury did, or the more financial problems that teams have, the more likely it does become, and the more that Sky have a monopoly over the sport, the more likely it is to become. But I just want to ask you then, coming back to American football, what was it then initially? You've said about the draft system and stuff like that, but watching the sport itself then, because I've had lots of people who've come onto this have chosen NFL shirts. I've got zero interest. I do appreciate the intricacies of the game and the playbooks and stuff. They're fascinating. But the sport seems so slow to me and so many stops and stuff. What is it why should I watch it? Convince me.
The pageantry is outstanding. I mean, can you imagine having cheerleaders at Wolves? Like, what I mean?
I could.
It just seems mental.
We've got everything else.
Well, this is it. Like, Wolves are the closest to it. Chelsea do it as well, don't they, with their light show? But imagine a team running on the pitch out of a helmet and all the crap. That's hilarious. That's fun. That's very American. But the hits that these guys endure as well is pretty terrible. Like, and I played it for a couple of years, and I was in. I'm a big guy, and I played in the O-line, which is the NFL equivalent of the centre back. You know what I mean? You've got these big guys trying to run through you, and you've got to go no, and they don't even touch the ball. You know what I mean? All you ever see when you see NFL is the snap back to the quarterback, and he pings it to this guy, and he runs in, and we all go, yay. Whereas there's like 10 geezers in the middle just having a right old pushing fight, like And these guys hit hard, and I do enjoy it. But there is, like you said, there's a lot of intricacy around it. But I feel that like you saying about the stop and start of it, I think that that's the same mentality as, do you play FIFA or do you play Football Manager?
Right.
Like Football Manager, I can sit there, I can have a couple of swills, smoke a couple of fags, get up, get something to eat, click on, play a season if I want, and do it in my own time. FIFA, you're button bashing for 4 minutes, and it's that intensity. You know what I mean? And I think that if you prefer Football Manager, you prefer NFL because you can just watch it. You can check your bet at halftime. You can, chat to somebody while it's on, and they have this wonderful thing called Red Zone, which is like Match of the Day but live.
Right.
So because the plays are quite intricate and they're quite staged, you can go from game to game to game to game to game and watch play while someone's in a commercial break, commercial timeout. You know what I mean? And that's not too bad. So I can watch 10 games that are happening all at once without having to change a channel, which is amazing.
That is quite impressive, yeah.
It's like watching Soccer Saturday, but with the live feed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think I've been tempted to have a go at least because just so many other people are telling me about it. So I think eventually I probably will. I mean, I used to watch the Super Bowl when I was at university, but that's as far as I've got. So let's have a look at the next bit then. So this is a photo that you've chosen, and already I've had questions before we started recording. So why an Albion manager winning at Old Trafford? Why is this?
Well, I didn't want to make it very Sheffield Wednesday esoteric, and this is an odd one for me. Now, Steve Clarke, as a man, has been an absolute enigma for me because he is renowned as a very, very, very good coach. One of the best. Jose Mourinho was one of his biggest promoters. And that that's high praise indeed. Everything he did. And then when where did he go? Was it when he went to West Ham with Janfran, and then he got placed on gardening leave? I'd never heard that phrase before in my life. What gardening leave was, and I was always intrigued by his career because during Chelsea through their early days under Ken Bates in the 90s and then into the Abramovich era, Steve Clarke was an absolute mainstay through all of that. He had the like even when we sold Dan Petrescu to them for a decent amount of money, they went, all right, Steve, we'll play Petrescu we'll play 5-3-2 with wing backs. Petrescu can play wing back and you can play centre back then. Like that, they're now shoehorning him in somewhere. You know what I mean? Because they just really appreciated him as a player because his tenacity was incredible. And as he's gone on to be a coach, when you really think about it, he's been really, really successful. Like all managers get the sack, don't get me wrong. So there's always going to be a cold period of every manager's career. Not everybody's a Ferguson. Yeah. But even he had his cold period when he first got to Manchester United. Yeah. Now, with Steve, if you look at his tenure during West Brom, and the picture I've picked is him being really, all he did was just pump a fist in the air. He's just beat Manchester United at Old Trafford with West Brom, and then got sacked not long after it. Just that dourness that he's got, where he's successful but he's not showbiz about it. He's not. He is a dour man. Don't get me wrong. And to intertwine the last two topics, I went to the NFL in 2015. They have the games at Wembley.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had a season ticket to them, so I go to all 3 games every year. And a friend of a friend turned up, and we got talking about football, and I started waxing lyrical about Steve Clarke, and the kid went, "Yeah, he's my dad." What? What? He went, "Oh yeah, honestly, I was sat there. I feel like I got manipulated, in the way that like gypsies do at fun fairs where they ask you open-ended questions. I thought, have I been done here or what? Like, you know what I mean? And it's his son. And since then, me and John have been really good mates, like genuinely, like really, really solid mates. And to hear things happen that you don't think that elite footballers would do, and some of the stories you hear is incredible. And last year, he just got the Scotland job, and there was a weekend in which he played Belgium and Russia on a Friday night and then on a Sunday night, or a Monday evening, sorry. So we went up, and we watched football as John was used to watching the football, which is a very different experience to what you and I would have watched football in. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shirt and ties and a lot of don't go in that room and start slagging players off because his mum will be behind you. You know what I mean? That's really weird. Yeah. And they got tanked. Both games, they got absolutely battered. I mean, Russia weren't terrible. Russia are very good. And then since those games, Steve has been the most successful Scottish manager for the last 40 years or something, and he's taken them to the Euros. And it's not about West Brom. It's not about England versus Scotland. But for some reason, I now give a toss about Scottish football because somebody who I revered as a player, I've now got a family connection to. And honestly, I feel like. I think he's one of the most underrated managers in the game. Me.
Well, it is strange that he's never really done it at club level for really been successful. Considering that his credentials, but it might be that classic thing about players who are too good for the Championship but not quite good for the Premier League. He seems like one of them. Like, is so good as a coach, but not quite got the man management skills or whatever it might be that's missing to actually be I think
it's a coaching thing. I think he's revered as an outstanding coach, but when he kind of retired, and then Kilmarnock pulled him out of retirement essentially, and he was in Europe. You know what I mean? He took him to third or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, they call him Sir Steve Clarke now, and then on the back of that, he's crashing the Rangers and Celtic party, and now he's got himself the Scottish manager job. It's about time. I'm glad someone's now realising how good he is, and now he's a national coach. And it's part-time as well, so it suits him a bit.
Yeah. It's a good job that you were being polite about him when you met his son. Otherwise, it could have been a very different story.
I was just sat there going, I'd never heard Garden League before. And then I think it was Steve Clarke at Chelsea. He went, it's my dad. Oh.
Right, let's move on to the next bit then. So a sporting photograph of you. I must be honest, it doesn't look too sporting. But talk us through this one.
This is my last game. Playing Sunday morning football. I've played it for 22 years, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm like I say, I moved across the south coast from Southampton to Brighton, and I've played Sunday league football in Sheffield, Southampton, Wickham, Croydon. That was grim, and I absolutely adore it. My footballing career went as high as playing for Boston Reserves back in 2001, but being a big guy, you either get played up front or you get played at centre back. And I think the last 15 years I've been played at centre back. And on my last game, I got sent off for violence and I scored, and I wouldn't want it any other way. You know what I mean? It was just the best way to typify my Sunday League career. And then towards the last couple of years, I'd been managing a team, and that's what that picture is. Grassroots is despite what I say about breakaway European leagues and draft systems, I feel that this is important, and it's important for the interaction of people. Locker room banter and all the rest of it. It sets you up for the world. And I come from Yorkshire as well, and it's got that very much. You kick 10 bells of crap out of a striker all game, and then you go, "Christ, you caught me there. Yeah, you got me a good one there earlier on." And then you buy each other a pint after. In the South, I'll not lie, they're not like that. I remember somebody waiting in a car park for me because I gave him a bit of a decent, Yorkshire challenge. And he was waiting in the car park for me. And you're thinking, is this really happening? Because it's that cardinal sin that in the South. And it's weird because Northerners can laugh at themselves, whereas Southerners can't. It's a cardinal sin of being mugged off, is what they refer to it as. And you can't do that to somebody in the South. It's like the worst thing. And I nutmegged him and then hoofed it. And as a centre back, you shouldn't be doing that. But anyway, and he got proper agitates about it, and that I'm not being in the South. I thought, God, that was in Portsmouth. Is this what happens down here? But going right back to 1997, 98, when I first kicked a ball at Sunday League, I remember we played an away game in Barnsley. And have you ever seen the film Kes?
I've seen bits of it.
You've seen the scene with Brian Glover as the PE teacher.
The teacher. It's my dad's favourite scene in any film.
That was what it was like playing Sunday League football in the 90s, as far as I was concerned. And the referee was just like Brian Glover's character, and I'm screaming, "He's offside! What's the matter with you, ref?" And he went, "No offsides on a Sunday, son. Play on." All right. Yeah, so that's that. But I just think stuff like that and some of the stories and stuff. And I tell you what I really like about it. I run. I'm in charge of a large budget and a big group of people that I have to manage. But I play alongside a centre back with a guy who works on a conveyor belt, and there's a bloke who plays centre mid who works in marketing, and it's such a level platform. You know what I mean? Nobody cares who you are or what you do. You are fair game to anybody when it comes to challenging, passing to you, the back and forth. It doesn't matter when you're on the football pitch, and that's why I think it's important. It helps you meet people from different areas, and this is my last game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's been a difficult year. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about COVID, but it's been a difficult year for all people who play sport at a very amateur level. How did you fill the void in the sort of springtime and early season this season without this football?
Well, it weren't running. Well, I think what it did, it made people be a bit more creative. I coming from an entertainment background, I obviously on my social media following, I see a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, and some of them were now singing on some of them were DJing and all the rest of it. And what I did, I've been doing my podcast now this is our 11th season, and I've been doing mine for a serious amount of time. But what it did, it made some of the ex-players quite accessible. So we did a lockdown live Zoom. Who heard of Zoom before March?
I know.
So we sit there and did a Zoom call with a few of the ex-pros, and sharing some great stories, and so it's been really great, like really good, and that's the way I did it, just to keep talking about football and being around it, and then thinking about running, but I didn't.
we all thought about running at times, yeah. Right then, the final part of the podcast then is a mystery piece of memorabilia. So something with a good story behind it. We've had all sorts of stuff in the past. We had a lighter that belonged to Billy Wright. We've had ticket stubs. We've had a scrapbook with a picture of Brian Clough on a bus with what was his name, Benjamin Bloom. So we've had all sorts of really, really good stories. So what have you got for us today?
During my tenure as a Sheffield Wednesday fan, my first choice was to bring the rosette. I've got a rosette from the 1991 Rumbelows Cup final. It's faded to purple now. It's a right mess, but it's going to fall apart at some point. But I wanted to do something like in recent history, something modern. And this hat is a Sky Sports bobble hat, just a Sky Sports beanie. That's all it is. It's just tat that that they had. And the reason I've got it is that we got to know David Garrido. He's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, the newsreader at Sky Sports News, and we got to know him over time doing the bits for the podcast that we did. And he said, "Do you want to come and do a tour around the Sky Sports studios?" Yeah, I want all of that. Yeah, and so we walked around, and they were so lovely. I've genuinely never met like a group of people that were none of them were pissed off with life. You know what I mean? And then we walked into one studio and you've got Nasser Hussain and David Gower. They were talking about the cricket, and then we met him. Then we walked into another room where it was the lockers, and I got to touch the golden tie that
Jim White.
Jim White wears. Yeah, I met Natalie Sawyer, and I'm never short for of a word in my life, but for some reason, meeting her, I went, yeah. I had a photo with Matt Letizia, and we went into the Soccer Saturday room, and we got to sit in the chairs. We had a photo with the Soccer Saturday gang, and Paul Merson came in, and after the 1993 Cup final. You see, it all entwines. This is like a good piece of stand-up, innit? You see how it all comes together. After 1993, Merson was playing for Arsenal in both of those games, and he came in and he saw one of my colleagues as a young kid, and he went, "What shirt's that?" And I went, "You know exactly what shirt it is, Merson. You know it. Don't come in here pretending you don't know." And and they were really genuinely dead lovely. And Phil Thompson and Charlie Nichols, and you find yourself measuring yourself against them because you think, right. I'm a decent seller about me. I'm great. So, Alan McNally absolutely dwarfs me. He's like a foot bigger than me, and I'm 6'2". The geezer's massive. Yeah. And he put his hand down, and it was like that scene in Little Britain, where he goes, and he passes him an ice cream. It's like that, just this big hand. You're like, "Oh, that Alan McNally. Sorry, don't be massive." You know what I mean? But yeah, that's and this hat was given to us, and on the way out, Thierry Henry just stood there, just signing himself in, and you go, Thierry Henry, this is football royalty. You know what I mean? These are people who have played at the highest level in the history.
World Cup winner, yeah.
Thierry bloody Henry, and it's not like I'm meeting Ryan Shawcross. I'm not meeting Ian Nolan. This is Thierry bloody Henry, and you go, shit,
Right. Oh, sir. Yes.
And I went because we had an ex-player of ours called Raider Johnson come onto the podcast, and I asked him to teach me the French to "Hello, my little cauliflower," right? Because I thought that'd be hilarious, hello. So I went up to Thierry Henry in the reception of Sky Sports Studios and went, "Bonjour, mon petit chou-fleur," and he laughed and then went, "What the fuck?" You can see, you go, "Who the fuck are you? Who's this guy?" You know what I mean? So yeah, as I'm stood there with my Sky Sports hat on. So this hat is where I met Thierry Henry and called him a cauliflower.
Oh, dear me. Very, very good. Well, Dan, we've come towards the end of the podcast. Thank you very, very much for coming on. If you want to check out Dan on Twitter, he's at Dan Fudge. But the Wednesday week is your podcast. Is there anything else you want to plug while you're here as well?
No, I'll probably have my own breakaway show at some point after doing this. But in the meantime, it's at Dan Fudge or at TWWcast.
Lovely. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to rate the podcast as well on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else that you find it, and share it to all of your friends. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.